Remember. All right. Welcome, everyone. We are so thrilled and excited to be kicking off our first program summit with you. So welcome to day one. My name is Brittany Andretian. I'm a business success coach with Practice Better, and I'm going to be hosting our 4-day program summit. So a little bit about the program summit before we dive into today's topic. If you've ever been curious about building and launching online group programs or courses, you are in the right place. So programs and courses remain one of the most buzzworthy, popular topics amongst our community of health and wellness practitioners. And with the recent upgrades and enhancements we've made to Practice Better's programs and courses feature, we thought now was the right time to partner with some of the most prominent names in the industry and bring you this summit. So whether you are looking to run your first program, whether you have lots of experience with programs and courses, or even maybe if you're in a place with your business where you no longer have the time to meet the demand of one-on-one clients, you're looking to scale or simply adopt a new method of care for your clients, this summit is for you. So I would love to hear in the chat if any of that resonated with you and where you're at in your business. Go ahead and drop me a yes in the chat. So this summit is going to teach you all of the important considerations, tips, and go-to knowledge for you to build and bring a program and course to market. So welcome. I hope you are as excited as us, and you can share some of that excitement in the chat with me. Day one is going to be all about building your email list before you launch. But before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items that we should talk about. First and foremost, we are recording, so you will get a replay sent to your email inbox after each session. So each day of the program summit, you will get a replay sent to you. We did deliver a work-along PDF to your inboxes last night. So we really want you to get the most out of this event and follow along with each of the expert sessions. So if you haven't already, pull up that work-along PDF. And if you don't have it, I'm going to actually pop a link into the chat so you can pull that up. Okay, so take a look at the chat there. You can use that link to open up that work-along PDF. I also just want to note that you can open it up in Google Docs. So if that's your preference, if you want to be able to take your notes, answer questions, and have that all saved into your Google Docs, go ahead and use that button at the very top of the work-along PDF. That's going to allow you to make a copy and keep that in your Google Docs, or you could print it. You've got lots of options there. And lastly, questions. So we encourage your questions throughout the session. Again, we want you to get the most out of the event. So make sure you put those questions in the chat box in Zoom. So you can see that just at the bottom of the little Zoom window. Just to note that we'll be saving most of those for the end of today's session. So we'll have a time dedicated towards a live Q&A at the very end. So just know that kind of going into it. All right. Now that we have gotten those housekeeping items out of the way, let's officially introduce our expert today for day one. We're very excited to introduce award-winning speaker, serial entrepreneur, recovering naturopathic doctor, and anthropologist, Meghan Walker. So Meghan is passionate about focusing on the health and optimization of entrepreneurs and game changers. And as someone who has done the work, she gets it. She has not shied away from revolutionizing the way health and wellness practitioners do their work. And she's doing this all through things like her podcast, running Entrepology Labs. She has Health Hives and amazing events like Impact Lives, all just really a drop in the bucket for the amazing work and experience that has built up to the expertise she's going to be sharing with us today. So thanks so much, Meghan, for being here. We're thrilled to have you as our kickoff for day one. And let's dive in. Today, we're going to be talking about building an email list for your program launch. And with all that work that you're doing, actually building your program, we want to ensure that you have as many qualified, interested prospects who know the type of value that you can provide and are eager about what you're bringing to market with your new program. So we're looking to, of course, increase sales and the success of your program by doing this foundational work of building your email list. So Meghan is going to take it away. She's going to share all about the 4 quadrants of care and how to build your email list.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. Now, before we jump in, I want to make sure you guys are seeing what I'm hoping you see, which is my screen. It's over here on the left. I can land planes from my office down here, but it should say build your list. And I see that you guys are all saying yes. And I'm going to really encourage you to participate and hang out in this conversation as we move through some of this content today, because you're going to learn some really incredible pieces and elements to your business this week. But there's one foundational component that is going to allow you to leverage and amplify your work in all of those other areas. And that is your email list. So we're going to get started with that piece for you today. And we're going to do it. And we're going to get going from a very high level place. We're going to start way up here in the clouds, looking at some of the theory behind an email list. Now, don't get scared off when I say words like theory. What I want to do is I want to contextualize you to where your ideal clients are hanging out in their journey of health. So you know exactly how to create content that makes your email list and your ideas and your personality and your offerings irresistible. So here's what I want to know first. I want to know, what do you guys do and where are you located? So if you can just throw into the chat what you do. You're a nutritionist, a dietitian, a naturopath, a functional medicine doc, an acupuncturist. I don't know, maybe you're a bus driver, like any or all of the above. I want you guys to throw down what you do and where you are located. Awesome. Holy smokes. Okay. You guys you're moving as fast as my brain moves sometimes, but not as fast as I can read. This is awesome. We've got some DCs, we've got health coaches, we've got Ottawa, we've got Calgary. Sorry about the snow out in Alberta. We've got people from Texas. We've got functional nutritionists. We've got, okay, guys, this is amazing. We've got a full gamut. Here's what you all have in common. You all need to have this tool. Now, I have one more question before we jump in, because this is going to set the stage in terms of context for everybody. Is there anybody in the room who's doing acute care? Like you're sitting in a merge waiting for people to come in. You are literally doing acute care. Okay, Gina, we got one. Awesome. Maybe one or two, not anymore. We've moved on. This is really, really key. So we've got a few yeses. But for the most part, how many of you are building health? I just want you to write the word build in the chat here if what you are doing is you are building health for people. Okay, amazing. All right, so let's give this some context as we go. Let's hope that this all does what it needs to do. Now, I know we have people from across North America, but I want to tell you first about an entrepreneur who is Canadian. And I want to tell you about this entrepreneur. She did something really novel. And she designed something that when you hear about it and when you wear it, I think I'm probably wearing it right now, you're like, that feels like a no-brainer. It's so insightful. It's like this individual, this entrepreneur got inside my head. And what I'm talking about is Knix underwear. Has anyone heard of Knix underwear? Knix underwear is the brainchild of a Canadian entrepreneur named Joanna Griffith. And what Joanna did about 10 years ago is she kind of looked around the underwear landscape. I'm pretty sure she was like standing like this one day in her own office in her own house. And she was like, oh my gosh, like why is women's underwear so uncomfortable? And why doesn't women's underwear actually address one of women's needs, which is managing leakage, which can happen in like 50% of the population, right? Why is it that we've prioritized all these other things when it comes to underwear? And she's like looking around the marketplace and she's like, it doesn't exist. And she did what any entrepreneur does when something doesn't exist and they have a burning and compelling desire to create something new. She went, I'm just going to design underwear that is comfortable for women, that actually matches the needs of women's bodies, right? And you guys are like, I love Knix. It's so amazing, right? That's all she did. And when you see Knix and you go to their website and you're like, oh, this is amazing. Like I could have thought of this. Some of the best inventions are things that you could have thought of. Well, the reason I have this number over here on the screen is because Joanna recently exited. She sold her company. She sold her company Knix for $320 million. This is the largest exit by a Canadian female founder in history. Now, what the heck does underwear and Joanna have to do with an email list. What Joanna did was she thought outside the box of how things are being done. She didn't put microchips in underwear. She just recognized the inherent needs of women. She got inside their heads. She got inside her own head. She understood the problem so intimately, literally and figuratively, that she created something to match the needs of her audience. That is what you are doing when you are writing to your audience in email. That is what you are doing when you are designing programs that create incredible outcomes in people's health. It starts by getting inside their head. It starts by understanding their actual real life needs. And so to contextualize this, I want to give you some framework in understanding your ideal audience. Now, here's a reality that we need to acknowledge. The global health and wellness industry is a $4.5 trillion global industry. What does that mean? People are spending a heck of a lot of money on their health. A lot of money on their health. Here's my question to you as some of the most educated people in this industry. Are you earning at the top of the triangle as the most educated people in this industry who we know are spending on their health? Everyone's like, oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. Well, historically, part of our challenge as practitioners, right? Yeah, let's be honest. We are not, right? We are not. Is because we kind of had like one offer. And a lot of us started here. We started with one offer, and that was like, come and see me one-on-one. But is that how people are spending in a $4.5 trillion industry? It is not. See, one of the things you're going to get exposure to this week, which is so exciting, is what needs to go into an online program, what needs to go into a group program. What I want to share with you is where these programs need to go in the ecosystem of your offerings. Now, let me just tell you really quickly why this is so important to me. So I have been a naturopathic doctor for over 15 years. I've stepped out of practice in the last year, but I wanted to build a business and I wanted to build impact in the world that was in alignment with my values. I got really clear early on in my career that what I wanted to do was put our systems of medicine, I call them upstream systems of medicine that treat the root cause. I wanted to put these systems of medicine into the hands of 30 million people by 2030. And I was sitting in my office one day and I was like, how am I going to do this when I'm working with people one-on-one? And I realized that I needed to have other things in my business. I needed to have leverage in my business. I needed to stop trading my time solely for money. And I needed to work with my incredible colleagues because I needed bandwidth. And I got really clear early on in my career that my mission was more important than the model in which it happened. And I share that with you because part of the power of your words, part of the power of your conviction that you are going to share and impart in your email list and on your social and in your promotion is tapping into your why, tapping into the thing that moves you. And not only did I want to put our system of care in the hands of 30 million people, I wanted to do it while earning an amazing living. I have 3 young daughters. I wanted to support them. I wanted to give them options. I also didn't want to work 40 hours a week. I laid down all the things that I wanted to have in my life, and I reverse engineered a business that would enable me to have my cake and eat it too. And that's how I go about building businesses. How can I have my cake, my gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, but still tasty cake, and get to eat it? And that's what we're going to talk about today. That's what an email list can enable you to do. Now, if you are someone who's like, I want to go deep on this, I'm like, you've got the analytical brain, then lucky for you, my book, Impact Medicine, comes out next week. And Impact Medicine is actually the system of care that I'm going to get into and I'm going to talk about today. And we're going to contextualize your mailing list towards. So let's talk about first and foremost, why you need a mailing list. Now, any of the photos that I show here, I want you to know that these are real live photos of our real live mastermind members who are presently earning an income while hanging out in that pool. Because they built a list, because they created leverage, and because they were strategic around how they set up their business. Only real life photos are going to happen from here on. So when you build your business, and I want you to think about this all week when you hear about from other amazing panelists, I want your business to have 3 critical ingredients. Because if you don't have these 3 critical ingredients, we're not hanging out in the realm of entrepreneurship. And I generally refer to my colleagues in like all of you as clinician entrepreneurs. We're not hanging out in the realm of entrepreneurship. We're hanging out in the realm of being self-employed. And being in the realm of self-employed is way more work. Way more work. So I want you to think about your business and your work and your impact in the context of being a clinician entrepreneur. I want you to think about what that identity embodies. So there's 3 things that a business needs to have if you are working as a clinician entrepreneur. First and foremost, you need to love what you do. Like, love what you do. Not just like, yeah, I like it. It's cool. It's fine. It's good enough. No, I want you to love what you do. The second piece is your business needs to be lucrative. It needs to be lucrative. I just want you to also know you deserve for your business to be lucrative. You change people's lives for a living. That's an incredible privilege. And you also get to have a lucrative business. You get all of the things all at once. And the last piece that your entrepreneurial endeavor needs to be mindful of and inclusive of is that you need to have leverage. What does leverage mean? Leverage means you don't trade your time for money all week. Because if you have 40 hours you can work in a week, how many people can you see for a 1-hour session, right? You are full. You are totally full. You can help at most 40 people per week. And that is if we're really generous, but we know that it doesn't really work out that way. We're really capped in how we can deliver that impact. It's also incredibly taxing. I joke with some of my ND colleagues that I'm pretty sure I left clinical practice because of the charting alone. Right? It is hard work to sit and hold space for people. We need to create leverage, not just because it's a good business move, but because it's a good self-care move as clinician entrepreneurs. So let's get into some of these details. I know people are like, I hate charting. Every single one of these women in this picture, I'm going to go back here for 1 second. Ooh, I don't even understand what's happening with my slides. Might just be a momentary thing and we'll move past it. Every single one of these women who are hanging out underneath that waterfall in Costa Rica were earning money while we were masterminding. Every single one of them had programs that they were sending out and selling through their lists. Selling through their mailing lists, not through the 30,000 people who follow them on social media, but through their email list. Because the difference between social media and an email list is you own that list. They are your clients. It is not subject to the whim of the platform to shut you out or have someone impersonate you. It's a really critical key function. It's something I wish I had paid attention to earlier in my career, frankly, was this idea that I need to move people into my own ecosystem. So let's talk about how to build this mailing list. And here's where we're going to have this 30,000 foot view. Because often when people start to build their mailing list, what they forget is what is going to come next. And I don't want you to just be like, out of the gate, let's just go and start building our stuff and not have context in terms of where we are going. I want you to understand what people need as they move through various states of readiness. Now, everyone here acknowledged, well, not everyone. Gina's like, I do acute care, but almost everyone said, no, I build health, Megan. I build health. So let's talk about what is happening and what people are desiring as we move them towards actually building health. Because here's the whole premise of the idea of impact medicine. The system that manages disease is not equipped to build health. And by system, what I mean is the way we deploy care. So group programs are amazing. Online programs are amazing. One-on-one care is amazing, but we have to know how to sequence it in the journey of a health consumer. So the thing I want everyone to understand is that when an individual is looking to build health, they are literally standing at a line. And the line that they are standing at is something I call the line of fine. And the line of fine is where people are dumped when they are finally stabilized on medication for their for their autoimmune condition. The line of fine is where people end up when they finish chemotherapy and they move into a watchful waiting period. The line of fine is where thousands of health consumers are dropped every single day. And I want you to understand this line of fine, because if you are trying to build a mailing list, talking to someone who's way back here in the state and in the midst of acute care, you're going to lose them as a customer. I want to talk about the line of fine because I want you to understand the biggest opportunity you have right now in your career is to talk to people as they are lost on that line. Because what does the traditional system tell them? You know what? Go home, you're fine. And come back if there's a problem again. They are literally teetering on this place and they are desperate for more information. So where do they go? They open their phone and they start to scroll. This is where people for the very first time in their lives are like, oh my gosh, honey, did you know that if I took out gluten and dairy that my acne might improve after being on Accutane for 5 years? They're like, oh my gosh, did you know if I plan this and do this and take this out of my diet or exercise, like I might lose weight? I'm being facetious, but this is the very first time that they have this realization. They're like, oh my gosh, they're watching you speak with confidence on social, maybe being on a live with somebody else. Maybe they are following you on Facebook. Not that anyone's on Facebook anymore, but they're following along. The more content you put out, the more confidence they have in you. You're giving them little snippets of ideas, but little snippets of ideas aren't enough to move people to that next stage. What we actually need to be aware of is what is the next step and outcome people are looking for. And that is the moment you create content that moves them onto your mailing list. For anyone who wants to go deeper, I've put together this guide. Find out what kind of stress eater you are. Find out what kind of menopause you're about to move through. Find out what kind of autoimmune disease you're at risk for. Find out what the best source of calcium is for your osteoporosis. This is where we cultivate curiosity and we start to move them over into that next step. Now, I want you to think about this. This is the place where people are most excited. This is your opportunity. I call this the aspirational quadrant. And I call this the aspirational quadrant because this is the very first time someone's like, oh my gosh, I can take health into my own hands. And if you are the person who convinces them of that, and is able to convey that to them, this is your opportunity to start to engage in a relationship with this individual. And getting people to move deeper into a relationship with you, where you are then going to be able to sell them on a program or an outcome or a transformation, it is going to require that they establish and you establish trust. And that is the job of putting them onto your mailing list. People are not going to jump on your list and then buy a $10,000 program. People are not going to get on your list and move right into a membership. People are not going to get on your list and be like, cool, sign me up for a group program. I'd love to be vulnerable in front of as many people as possible. You need to cultivate trust. You need to recognize that when people are moving into a place of building health on the opposite side of the line of fine, it is different than practicing acute care where people are like, my leg is broken, fix it now. They're going to move a little bit slower. They are going to want to be empowered. They're going to want to put some of these ideas into play and feel the result for themselves. And I share all of this because if you are jumping out of the gate and sending them a lead magnet, and then trying to get them into a high ticket program or a group program or something that's deeply vulnerable before you've ensured that you've established that trust, you may have a lot of names on your mailing list, but you won't have a lot of people moving into your programs. Your mailing list is a really critical tool in establishing trust as you move forward. So let's just take a quick second here. And I know you have in your workbook some of these pieces, but you need to have answers to these questions before you start to create the lead magnets that move people onto your mailing list. Who is your ideal audience? and what do they really want? So I see lots of opt-in pages in the health and wellness industry where people are like, join my 5-day habit challenge. I'm going to empower you about your health. And every day for the next 5 days, we are going to do a brand new habit. Tomorrow, we're going to learn to drink water, and then we're going to learn to go to bed on time. And then we're going to practice stretching, and then we're going to do something else. And by Friday, your whole life will be transformed. And here's what we know. No one is actually going to transform their whole life in 5 days, right? And also, most health consumers aren't walking around on the line of fine going, you know what, I could just really use some more empowerment with respect to my health. They're not doing that. People have very specific things they're looking for. People very specifically want to know what to eat for their osteoporosis. People very specifically want to know, how do I mitigate inflammation through my food so I can get off of this medication? People want to know what things they're doing in their lifestyle that's actually making their depression worse. They want specifics. They don't want doses. They want curated information. So here's the first thing I really want you to ask with your ideal audience. What is it that they really want behind the fluffy words, but the real outcome? Does anyone want to venture to throw that in the chat? What does your ideal audience really want? Does anyone have a sense of that? Okay, we got live stage. I like that. More energy, get pregnant, feel better. We need to be more specific. No symptoms. We got to be more specific. To get to sleep. So they want sleep. Is it to get to sleep? Is it to stay asleep? They're totally separate. When we're talking about lead magnets and we're talking about getting people on your list, you want to speak directly to their needs. Okay, these are great. How to manage my anxiety. Let's get more specific. Why do we want to manage your anxiety? What do people want to do with their anxiety managed? Decrease their bloating. Okay, let's get behind that, right? Control their emotions. What emotions? What's triggering them? Are we talking to moms? Are we talking to dads? Are we talking to people without kids? Like, really get specific on who we're talking to and what other lifestyle things are going on. I think I saw like somewhere in this, they want to poop once a day. That's great. Super specific. We can build all sorts of content around that. We need to get really specific on what they want. Now, you also need to be very clear on where you want to move people to when they opt into your list. When I talked about those 4 quadrants, that first place is aspirational. Your only job when people are in that aspirational place is to inspire them enough to get onto your list and have an opportunity to start to curate and cultivate trust. And when people trust you, when they like what you have to say, guess what they're going to do? They're going to be like, you know what? I really like what Meghan has to say. She's super clear on how she communicates. She's very clear on the outcome that she's going to deliver through her lead magnets or through her challenge or through her quiz. You know what? I'm going to buy that $500 program. I'm willing to try it out because I want that outcome. I want you to know when you create a lead magnet where you want to move people to. What is the next step? You need to get really clear on that because the content between the next step and the lead magnet needs to be created to facilitate that transition. Now, when I asked you guys to share, and there's tons of awesome ideas in here around what they really want, here's what I want you to think about when you're designing your lead magnet. What can you deliver to them that will provide them with an easy win? An easy win. Do not try to change all of their health habits in 5 days. That is a very hard win. It's a very hard win. I want an easy win. Reduce hot flashes. I'm going to talk lead magnet here, not a whole program. So here's the thing. When we give someone a lead magnet, we want them to have a quick, easy win. And when I say quick, easy win, we know that like hot flashes, Carolyn, I love this idea. Hot flashes are like multifactorial. There's lots of things that factor in. It's going to be very hard for you to give that to someone as an easy, quick win. Now, can we reduce your hot flashes by 20%? Can we eliminate the 10 most common triggering foods for hot flashes? Sure, we can do all of those things. Eliminate going to be a little bit hard. So let's get really specific about what it is. Snack ideas for renal disease, period prep ideas, make a healthy lunch in 10 minutes or less. I like these. Now here, I want you guys, these are great ideas. So hang out for 1 second. Now I want you to think like Joanna Griffiths. I want you to get outside the box because what's not going to work for a lead magnet is anything that someone can just go and Google. I can go and Google diabetic friendly snacks. I can go and Google 80 ideas to make my kids lunch in 10 minutes or less. I can go and Google, oh, I want these to be ungoogleable. How do we make them ungoogleable? Well, we start to throw in language that credentials ourselves as the experts that we are. So instead of it being like my 10 favorite foods for renal disease, it is my 10 favorite foods for renal disease backed by our research. We start to use language that credentials you as the expert. We're going to get into what some of the key factors are in creating a lead magnet. One of those key factors is your headline. One of those key factors requires that you differentiate yourself from others online. You differentiate yourself from someone who did a course on the weekend or who once lost weight and now fancies themselves an expert. Okay. So what could you deliver that will provide them with an easy win? I really want you to be mindful of that. You want to be the person that gives them an easy win. You want to be responsible for that. Conversely, you do not want to be the person who is responsible for complicating their life. I was doing really well following all these Instagram people, and then I did this one course, or I got this one download, and I'm totally confused. Don't do that. Don't be the source of their confusion. You want to make their life easier, not harder. Okay, these are great. 6-minute morning routine to support your gut-brain connection. Yeah, these are the kinds of things that are a little bit harder. Top 5 cooking tips to lower histamine. Yes. Right. These are all really great options. I also want you all to think about for just 1 second the fact that one of your jobs, one of the things that comes from being an expert is your ability and your capacity to deliver strategy. Strategy is different than information alone. So when we talk about strategy, it enables us to start to slowly shift the nature of our lead magnets away from like my 5 favorite recipes for into the science behind, again, credentialing yourself as the expert. So you can often include both, but I just want you to keep this in mind. How can you constantly be using language and delivering information that credentials you as a strategist, not just a purveyor of more information? And here's the last question I want you to keep in mind as you do this. Which of those ideas that you have would be the easiest for you to create? It's awesome if you want to run a 5-day challenge. It's just not the easiest thing. What are some easy, quick wins you can put out into the world so you can start to be building your list right away? So these are things that I want you to think about. These are things I want you to be strategic about. I used to do this thing where I would just constantly make new stuff. I felt like I had to be making new things all the time for my lead magnets. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this. I was not good at reusing and repurposing my content. I've let that version of myself go. But I want you to also think about, as an entrepreneur, how can you be most efficient with your time? When you throw out 5 or 6 lead magnets in a quarter or over 6 months, you now have an opportunity to start to understand which of those were actually the most popular, which of those are worth keeping. You may love one of those lead magnets. It might be one of those things you put so much time and energy into that gets you really great results, but no one really wants to buy or no one really wants to access it or download it. Part of your job as the CEO of your business is to look at the metrics associated with your mailing list. Look at the conversion, look at those opt-in rates so that you are continuously making decisions in alignment with your ideal audience. Sometimes that's going to be hard. That's why I want you to start with the easy things, not necessarily the hard things. So we've been going a little bit lower each time. We started up here. We talked about this aspirational idea. We talked about the line of fine. We talked about where people are at in their state of readiness as it pertains to their health. Let's get into the logistics a little bit more. There's Kate and Katie and Jess. We were going surfing while our lists were doing work for us. So let's talk about general mailing list logistics. So first of all, you need to select a mail platform. Now, this sounds really basic, but I'm calling the people in the room out who are still, after 6 months, being like, I'm still analyzing which platform I want to use. Guys, you're all here because of Practice Better. Start there. And if you need something more robust, then pick something that is slightly more robust. I generally teach, if I'm not sending people to something they already have, like Practice Better, I talk about something like Active Campaign that can grow with you. Now, your best friend's sister down the street might like Flowdesk. I don't care what platform you use, but what you can't afford to do is take 8 months to make the decision. So if you haven't made a decision about what platform you're going to use to speak to your mailing list, I'm going to give you till about 3 p.m. Eastern when we are done this talk. I want you to make the call. Because the hardest part about growing your list is not making that decision. You can change it down the road. I also just want to point out to the regulated practitioners in the room, your mailing platform does not necessarily have to be HIPAA or PAPITA compliant. So right now, what we're talking about is marketing to prospective patients. We're not talking about collecting patient-sensitive data. And so it does not have to be it doesn't have to be PAPITA or HIPAA compliant. Lisa, I love that you said that you're like guilty analysis paralysis. Yeah, let it go. Just make a choice. Guys, there's so many decisions you have to make in your businesses. You can't get hung up on those details. You can always change it down the road. Now, once you have made a decision, there's really 3 sort of lists that you're going to have to keep in mind. So I want you to be mindful of this piece. So you need to select a mail schedule and you need to make a commitment to that. So one of the most important things you can do to establish trust with your audience is be consistent. Be consistent. If you mailed once last month and then maybe this month, and then sometimes when I'm not busy, you are not going to engender trust. You are not going to, for your audience, create the spirit of predictability or reliability for them. So it's really key that you are consistent. You have to be consistent with your general high value content. Guys, don't be scared to mail your list. Don't be scared. Some people will unsubscribe. That's okay. Lots of people might unsubscribe. That's okay. They're not your ideal clients. Don't not mail your list because you're scared that people are going to leave. That's part of it. That is their right. You get really clear on the mission that you are after. So you're going to want to have high value content that you consistently put out to your audience. That might be once a week. That might be twice a week. That might be every single day. Notice I'm not saying once a month. And it doesn't have to be this long thing. One of my favorite mailing lists that I'm on is Seth Godin's mailing list. It's like 3 sentences every day. Always gold. Always an easy conversation start. It does not have to be long. People want to hear from you. They want to hear novel ideas that add value to their lives. You need to pick a schedule. So you're going to have general mailings that you send out to your mailing list that just keeps them engaged, that just reminds them that you are awesome, that delivers to them consistent, cool, innovative, desired to be talked about ideas. You are also going to have to be aware that you will have to create campaign-specific content. What does that mean? That means maybe you're launching your online program. Maybe you're launching your group program. You're going to have a chance to learn about this. So in learning about how to create these programs, you are going to have to market those programs specifically. You're going to create a series of emails that specifically market that program in addition to your regularly scheduled content. The third thing that you're going to create, and we're going to get into what should happen in this content-wise, is you are going to have a lead magnet follow-up sequence. So generally what happens is people download your lead magnet. It's super awesome. And then you email them a series of emails, 5 to 7 emails that further indoctrinate and introduce them to you and your ideas. And then we move them over onto your regular mailing list. And then they become part of your crew. And then every once in a while, you're like, I'm launching my program. And we go, here's our campaign specific emails that start to go out. You're going to I want you to know that those are 3 types of emails that you're going to have access to. I love these questions in here. So is it bad that I'm doing it once a month? It's not bad. It's just not helpful. It's just not helpful. I get tons of emails every day. So do you guys. The person who emails you once a month, you might notice that once a year. Here's just like a general thing about your business. If you want to increase revenue into your business, you have to put more offers in front of people. Let me put this another way. If you want to help more people, you need to put more offers in front of people. You need to give them more opportunity to move deeper into that relationship with you. It's like when we pull apart all the strategy and all the other things, if you are not giving people and consistently inviting people to work with you more often, they're not going to. They're not going to. So it's interesting, right? There's comments here. People don't like getting emails more often. That's true if we're not giving them a ton of great value. I love reading Seth Godin's email every day. There are some people that you hear from in your inbox. You're like, I love getting their emails. I like their emails. I just don't like their emails. I want you to be that person. I want you to do that person. Here's the other thing I want you guys to stop doing. I'm going to get into this afterwards, but don't look who unsubscribes. Don't look. It's not your business. Don't look. Now you want to know like thousands of people are leaving all at once, but don't look at the names. Yeah, Liz says, yeah, I have lists I love. Okay, so why is that? Seth Godin is his name. Why is it that you have certain lists that you love and certain lists that you don't love? Let's lean into the lists that you love. Let's watch those metrics, but don't go in and look at who unsubscribed from your list. I used to do that. And I was like, why did she unsubscribe? I really like her. Like she really likes me. I saw her last week. Why is she unsubscribing from my list? I took it personally. Then I realized she subscribed already on my list under like 5 other different aliases. Don't be scared to email your list. This is how you help more people. Let's get into more logistics. This is really key. The anatomy of a lead magnet. There's a few key things you are going to have to create. And I'm going to give you guys a really cool resource after this. It's going to help you like step by step, all of these pieces, like checklist all of these pieces. So hang tight. This is why we can hang out way up here. Anatomy of a lead magnet, the actual lead magnet, right? You need a landing page. Now everyone's like, a landing page, is that the same thing as a squeeze page? Is that the same thing as an opt-in page? Yes, it's the place where you collect their email address. You give them this amazing headline as to what your lead magnet is all about. You collect their email address, you collect their name, and this connects to your email marketing system. So you need a landing page. I always mention you need a thank you page, right? Once you opt in, a thank you page comes up. Now, you don't have to do this, but I always do the thank you page. Why? Because you have someone's undivided attention. There's nothing else going in. They opt in and the page comes up. What do I usually put on my thank you page? I usually send you to our Facebook group. Super simple, but I want to take advantage of someone's undivided attention. So I think you need a thank you page, and then you need follow-up sequence. And I'm going to tell you exactly what you can put in that follow-up sequence. Now there's 3 things, and I know on your handout, I asked you these 3 things. What are like the 3 most critical parts? Notwithstanding the itty bitty content in your follow-up sequence, there's 3 key things I just want you to make sure you pay attention to. The first is the headline. The headline needs to be really specific about what you're going to deliver for people. It needs to be really juicy. I would suggest you make 3 versions of the headline and you show it to your friends who are your ideal audience. Which one speaks to you the most? I spend the most amount of time figuring out my headlines. More than the lead magnet, more than the follow-up sequence. I spend the most amount of time on my headline. The next thing is the offer or the actual lead magnet that you create. And the third thing is your follow-up sequence. We get super hung up. Remember we were talking about before, I can't make a decision on my platform. We get super hung up on some of those tech details. It's not the most important part. The headline, the offer, and the follow-up sequence. These are the critical things that you need to be aware of. Now let's talk about some of the things you can actually use for lead magnets. So if we're talking about some of your options, I want to go through some of the pros and cons of the different things that we can use. So I have everybody start with something really simple, like don't pick the hardest thing first. We're going to talk about, Carla, where people are going to see your lead magnets. So let's talk about what those lead magnets are, because that's what's going to determine partly where they're going to find them. Is the headline the email subject? It can be. But people aren't finding your lead magnet in an email subject necessarily. They're probably finding it on a landing page. What is the headline on your landing page? How do we make it really juicy and irresistible? Words like secret. Bonnie, I'm going to one better you on the slides, okay? So don't worry. I'm going to give you all of the details on how you can do this. So list building options, simple lead magnets. It could be a PDF. It could be a workbook. It could be a checklist. It could be something you already have. One of our most successful lead magnets, what I did last year is I had all these handouts after being in practice for 15 years. And I took all of my handouts that we had created, and we had like 85 handouts that were all referenced and awesome. And we just put them in a Google Drive and we ran ads to them for $28. Went bonkers because it would take people hours to put all of those things together. It was a really valuable lead magnet for us, a bit of an advanced maneuver because we charged people for it. And then we'll get into that in the Q&A piece, but this was content I already had. I didn't have to go make anything new. I literally dragged it all into a Google Drive. When we send out lists for things, a checklist for launching your next online program, people download it and they go bonkers for it because they don't know that stuff. And if you Google that, you get like 25 people's opinions and you're trying to pull it all together. The 15 things you must do as a health and wellness practitioner to launch your next online program so you can reach more people. Right? Super simple stuff you already have. We just pulled it out of one of our programs. You probably have things you've already created. Pair them with a juicy headline and start to test them out. So this is great for ongoing lead acquisition. This is great for testing things out. This is great if you have a Facebook group. You can be like, hey guys, I made this new handout. Who wants to get their hands on it? You drop the link there. These are great things to use if you're giving a talk. Super simple for people. Now, another type of tool that you could use can be a webinar. I love doing webinars because you have an opportunity to interface with people. You have an opportunity to share your knowledge. You are still gathering their email address. You can give them a call to action on the backside. Webinars are one of my favorite tools in the health and wellness industry to build your list and drive people towards working with you because they get a sense of who you are. They get a sense of how you speak. They get a sense of your competence and your confidence. So they're great because they're a conversion tool and a tool you can use to drive leads. Quizzes are another great option. People love quizzes with a juicy headline. What kind of entrepreneur are you, right? Like it could be anything. We stop on our tracks at the idea of being curious, a stress quiz. Here's the downside of running a quiz. They're not great leads. They're not great leads. You'll get a lot of them, but they don't necessarily convert well. Generally speaking, when you put a little more work into your lead magnets, you get a little bit better results on the backside. But you want to start simple and you want to expand from there. Challenges, also great. Similar to a webinar, we can use those to convert. We usually use challenges when we want to give people one particular outline. I'm going to give you guys an example of this at the end of our time here together. A challenge is a really great way to showcase what it is that you do. Challenges are also a really great way to build your list and audience before you do a launch. But I wouldn't make the challenge the first thing you do when we're talking about lead magnets. I would make your simple lead magnet PDF or workbook the first thing you put out to your audience. Keep it super simple, easy for your audience to do as well. And summits, and we're not going to talk about summits, but they're just like the mecca of lead generation. They take 18 months of planning and you have to find all your speakers, and you guys are in the midst of a summit this week. They're just a little bit more work, but they give you a bigger return. But I wanted to acknowledge it when we're talking about the different ways that we can possibly build on these lists. So just to give you a bird's eye view of how this works, and we start to put this into a system, we start up here. People are watching you online. They are, there's 3 ways that we can drive traffic. We can drive traffic socially. We can drive traffic through paid traffic if we want to, which is beyond the scope of the conversation for this week, or we can get on other people's platforms, which is a great way, an underutilized way in our industry to be able to share our lead magnets. You get on somebody else's platform, you share your expertise, and you say, hey, everyone who's on this live today, I want to give you an opportunity to download my osteoporosis checklist. I keep talking about osteoporosis because I think it's a great niche that's underserviced, right? You can use these lead magnets all the time. One of the questions earlier is, where do we put our lead magnets, Megan? Well, you can share them on your social. You can share them on other people's social. You can share them on the front of your website. You can share them in the bottom of your email signature, not just in your mail platform, but in your Gmail. In the bottom of my signature, here are 3 ways we can work together. One of them is to download a lead magnet. Super simple, costs me nothing. You don't want to make it hard for people to opt onto your list, to come into your ecosystem. So let's talk about this for just a quick second. Let's just take a quick inventory before we step into a few other pieces. Where can you provide simple access to your list? And let's leverage the power of the number of individuals in this room right now. I just mentioned a few of them. So the bottom of your email signature is one. Definitely on the front of your website is another. Definitely in the links on your social media platform is another. Where else are you showing up? Anywhere someone is possibly looking for you, you want to make your lead magnet available. Anytime you are giving a talk or showing up on someone else's social platform, you want to make a lead magnet available. Anytime you are having dinner at a friend's house where you have an excuse to be able to talk to someone, you want to be able to tell them where they can go to get onto your mailing list. So you want to make sure that people can, no matter what, opt in. Now, I want you to make a decision. I've asked some of you to make a decision about what platform you're going to use. And I want you guys to also make a decision. What are you selecting as your next lead magnet? Is anyone ready? QR code on a business card. I love that, Bobby. What a great idea. What are you selecting as your next lead magnet? I want you to put stuff out in the world. I want you to get into momentum. So there's a great comment here. Simple does not always mean better. No, but we need to be in a state of momentum for us to be able to start to trial and test these things. Once you put your first lead magnet into the world, you realize how quickly you can create more. And you're going to need more than one to know what your audience actually wants, to know what actually converts. So this is as much about how do I create an effective lead magnet as how do I get a lead magnet out the door so I can start to put this system into play. This is like pouring water through one of those things that kids play with, where all the little gears all start to turn. We want to start to pour water through the system so we know what gears are broken, what gears are working really well. You are going to put out lots of lead magnets that you think are awesome, and your audience is like, nah. So you are going to want to put a certain number out into the world. You're going to want to look at the data. You're going to want to pull the ones that don't work, analyze why they're not working, and put something else in. So there are certain things in your business that you're going to take a long time to create, and there are other things in your business that you want to be able to move quickly on. This is one of the things that you want to be able to move quickly on. Now, I want to address one last thing, and we're going to make sure that we have time for questions, and I want to make sure that I hook you guys up with a resource. But I want to talk a little bit about the nurture sequence that happens on the backside. So everything we talk about today is we could talk about email in like a 10-module course. So what I'm talking about today are just some things that you need to think about so that you can get going and you can get into a state of momentum. And so everyone's cruising along, right? We can go to YouTube and we figured out how to create the landing page and we've made our PDF. And if you want a really great resource for making your beautiful PDFs, look at creativemarket.com for like $29. You can create these great templates and then put your own colors in or modify it in Canva. So you can have this beautiful looking lead magnet. People get to that point and then they're like, I don't know what to write in my follow-up sequence. And so all the work that you've done related to your lead magnet just sits there for another 4 months while we contemplate what needs to happen over here. So there are lots of ways you can write a nurture sequence on the backside of a lead magnet. If every panelist you heard from this week asked you to, or you asked them to outline what should happen in a nurture sequence, they may give you slightly different answers. But I want to give you an answer that enables you to move into a state of momentum. So let's talk about what your nurture sequence needs to do. So the goal of your nurture sequence is to convert people into the next step of the journey with you. And this should be pretty obvious, but I've actually forgotten to do this myself. Email number 1, the whole purpose of it is to deliver the thing you promised. Don't forget that. It breaks trust very quickly. Email number 1, deliver the lead magnet. And then seed your audience. Here's the handout. I'm going to use osteoporosis for the second. Here's the handout that I promised you, my 10 favorite foods to remove to slow the progress of your osteopenia. But I want you to know that for the next 10 days, I'm going to send you an email every other day where we go deeper into the research that my team and my coaches and my patients have found deliver them the best results that actually help them build bone back sooner. And if you are interested in having a better scan next time we are assessing where you are at with your osteoporosis, you're going to want to pay attention for the next 10 emails. Right? Seed that list. In fact, I want you to watch for anything with the subject matter bone school. Right? You're telling them exactly what to look for. In fact, probably what you're going to tell them in email number 1 is I want you to bookmark me so that you don't miss me, so I don't go into junk. I'm going to be back tomorrow, and tell them when they're going to hear from you next. And then that second email is going to open with bone school. And it's going to have a subject line related to what you're covering in email number 2. And again, we could do a whole module on headlines, and I'll give you some resources if that's an area where you get caught up. Email number 2, this is where you want to empathize with their challenge. They want to know that you understand what they are going through. This is where you want to be inside their head. You don't just want to be like, I speak to 65-year-old women with osteopenia. Megan's like, what's bone school? I just made that up. I made that up as if I was a practitioner focused on osteoporosis. You want to empathize with their challenge. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to hear from your doctor where you think you're perfectly healthy and doing everything you need to be doing for yourself. And suddenly they call to say, you have osteopenia. You are at high risk for osteoporosis. You are one fall away from changing the rest of your retirement, right? They want to know that you understand what's at stake. This is where you're also going to start to draw attention to your solution. I have been working with, this is what we do. Follow along for more. Watch my webinar here. Go deeper here. But you want to come from a place of deep empathy because we are highly empathetic practitioners. It's one of the things that we do differently. Email number 3, don't go past email number 3 and not introduce yourself. Talk about why you are uniquely positioned to be able to help and support them. You also want to add value. Don't just make it about you. Why do you care so much about osteoporosis? And then make sure you give them more value. Email number 4, you want to make a connection to that lead magnet. How are you doing in moving through the lead magnet? Everyone gets stuck on food number 5. No one knows what to do with cauliflower. I want to give you one more resource. Here's my 5 favorite recipes to use with cauliflower. I'm making this up as we go, guys. Connect to that lead magnet. You know, if you made 5 simple changes in your diet, it's going to completely change your future. See, 2 weeks ago when you got that diagnosis, you thought your future looked like this, but now you're starting to make changes and your future can look like that. CTA stands for call to action. Email number 4, start to paint the future state. Give them a call to action. My group program starts next week. Are you going to be part of it? Email number 5, straight up. We're going to get into the call to action now. My group program really starts next week. Here's what we cover. Here are the type of people are in it. Here's how long individuals have been managing osteopenia when they come into our group program. Right? We want to give them a deeper call to action. Get on a call with my team, learn more about it. Don't forget to actually ask people to take that next step. Nothing's more frustrating than being on someone's list and you really love them and their content's super awesome. And take a screenshot of this, guys. I'm about to change it if you want it. And then they never tell you where you can work with them. It's really frustrating. Few hot tips before we make some space for questions. The PS in an email is an incredibly powerful part of email real estate. Watch yourself next time you open an email and it's long and there's lots of words. We don't like to read. You're not unique. No one reads. What do? They go, what? And they read the PS. Cut to the chase, Megan. What's happening? Is the program closing? What's going on? Don't forget to include a PS in your emails and this is the place where you should just if you've got one thing to say, put it in the PS. Sometimes I do a PPS because I clearly have a lot to say, but don't miss out on the real estate of the PS. Add your opt-ins everywhere. As you're looking over your own website, as you're navigating through emails, if you happen to notice that there is an opt-in missing somewhere, make sure there is easy access to your mailing list. I've mentioned this already, but don't look at who opts out. It's going to mess with your head. Don't do it. Just don't look. Look at your absolute numbers, but don't look. I also said this earlier, sell stuff more often. Put more offers in front of people if you want to help more people. More offers, more people. Keep your emails quick. You do not have to write an essay. You do not have to impart every piece of information you ever learned in school in every single email. In fact, people are going to have more trust in your abilities if you can get to the point faster as I go over time. And then last piece is stick to strategy. So there's a lot of regulated practitioners on here. And for you in particular, because you will get in trouble with your boards if your lead magnets or your emails get into specifics. Your lead magnets are not a place where you are recommending dosages. Your lead magnets are not a place where you are recommending treatments. Your office or your programming, depending on your regulation, is where you make recommendations around treatment. What you are sharing here is high-level information that is unique to you because you are uniquely credentialed in your experience or in your qualifications. So really keep that in mind. It's not juicier when you're like, the exact dose of all the supplements I give my menopausal patients. You really want to make sure that you are sticking to that strategy level and you are not giving people those specifics around dosing. Now, I could talk about email all day long. I could talk about headlines. I could talk about like what really goes into how we design that lead magnet. So I just want to give you guys a really quick resource for this. We have a 5-day lead magnet challenge. Like when I say PS, I mean like the PS at the bottom of the email, right? Like PS, one more thing. So we have a 5-day lead magnet challenge. It is totally free. Each of those days, we take you through different elements of designing and building out your lead magnet, including all the tech. So there's a whole bunch of bonus training on how to set up your landing page, how to connect it on the back end, how to tag people, like all the stuff where you feel like you're in momentum and then it suddenly slowed you down. So if you think that is going to be helpful for you, I know that the team at Practice Better is going to send out the link to this as well. But here is the QR code. Take a screenshot of this. Andrea, can you see is the QR code working on the little? Is it working when it's little? Yeah. Okay, great. So you can also take a screenshot of that and you can come back to it afterwards because I'm going to share one more thing with you. Awesome. You'll get the link, guys. We're going to have Practice Better is going to send it out for you as well. So don't sweat. And the other thing and the other QR code that I wanted to give you was so that you could attend, if you desire, our event, Impact Lives, next week. We're talking about the future of health, how to future-proof your practice, what the future of health looks like in terms of offerings. We've got incredible speakers who are going to be part of it. It is in person and online. The coupon code that you see here at the bottom will give you free access to the event. So take a screenshot of these pieces. Again, the team from Practice Better is going to make sure that you have access to the links. But if you are a quick start like me, you're going to want to take care of these things quickly. So here you go. Here are some options for you guys. It has been a real pleasure. I know there are tons of questions. I'm going to stick around and we will move through them together. But best of luck, everyone, as you put this piece out into the world, as you design your group programs this week, your online programs. This is how we are going to reach 30 million people, by everyone putting in their energy, bringing their own unique voice to the table. You guys are awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Are we here for some Q&A, Megan? You've got a few more minutes?
I'm here, of course. Yeah,
Wonderful.
I'm all yours.
Great. We've got a lot of questions that came in from the chat, so we're going to get to those too, and maybe hit you with some hard ones. I get you on the spot here. I know you're a fan of reverse engineering. You talked about reverse engineering your own career and what you kind of carved out for yourself. So I want to kind of apply that to your email list. When we're thinking about a program, if we have a goal, so let's say that we have a certain number of registrants we want to see, or a certain number of sales, that kind of idea. Let's talk typical conversion rates with email lists. So obviously not every single person that's going to be on our email list is going to go on to becoming a paying customer, but how can someone start to think about kind of reverse engineering their goals so they have a loose idea of how many people they want to see on their email list?
Yeah, so I want to acknowledge that there's two types of launches. There's the first launch you ever do, and then there's your attempts to launch that program a second time. And these have entirely different numbers and metrics attached. So if you've never launched anything, an online program or a group program before, the very first time that you release this out into the world, your audience have been like waiting with bated breath for someone as smart and awesome as you to put a program into the world. They're going to buy it. You're going to be like, this is fantastic. I sent out 4 emails to my email list and suddenly I've got all these people purchasing, and I'll get into numbers in a quick second. And so you're going to, like, you want to put 20 people in your group program and you've got, 2,000 people on your list and you've been emailing them in a really active capacity. No problem. We filled our program. And then 6 months later, we're like, I'm going to do my program again. And I email my list and you're like, no one bought. because all the people who were like with their pent up desire to purchase are like, I purchased already. So when we talk about having a second launch, this is where we're going to have to look at new tools. It's really hard to say what a typical conversion would look like, because as we saw from the comments, some people are emailing their list once a month and some people are emailing their list every week. So it's actually going to depend on how engaged your list happens to be. No matter what, if we are selling a program, we're going to have to interrupt our regularly scheduled programming with what I call a marketing event to get people excited to actually start to convert. And so a really great example of a marketing event would be something like a webinar. As I mentioned, webinars work really well in health and wellness. So here are some benchmarks that you might want to look at when we're talking about something like a webinar, where your list will be one of the sources of populating that particular webinar. Generally speaking, what we see is that 30% of people who signed up to participate in usually an online webinar, 30% of the people who signed up will actually show up. And of the people who show up, 10% typically buy. So if you want to have 300 people who are actually going to show up, you are going to need 1,000 people who opt into that webinar. And if of those 300 people, you're like, great, I want to put about 30 people into the program, then we can anticipate of that, 300 people, 10% are going to opt in and actually purchase the program. And it's really interesting because we've tracked these numbers internally with our own practitioner launches of people in our masterminds and programs. And those really do hold pretty steady. Lorraine says, what's the difference between a webinar, a workshop, and a masterclass? The spelling of the word, they're all doing the same thing. It's an opportunity for you to teach on your core subject matter. You're giving them a call to action, maybe get on a call, move into your program, any or all of the above. Those same numbers hold. 30% of people who sign up show up, 10% of people who show up typically end up purchasing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So with that in mind, if we are kind of looking at the summit from the guise of building and getting a program ready to bring to market, marketing it, selling it, all that good stuff, how far in advance do you think people should start mentioning their program in their email newsletter? How many weeks would you build out to have a successful launch for something like that when you're mentioning it? Obviously, it's going to depend on, the frequency of the emails, but how many touch points roughly do you think people need?
Yeah, so there's two parts there, is like the how many touch points and how far in advance. I really like to seed when we have got a big thing coming. So I will be on social and I'll be on email. I'm like, guys, we have something amazing happening in January. Like, I'm going to give you little snippets behind the scenes. I'm going to cultivate curiosity early. I may even create a wait list early. If you want on the wait list, you want a discount, you're like, jump on our wait list. I'm not going to tell you any details though. Like, we just make it kind of fun. But really, when we're talking about a launch, you really want to be sort of all in, calendar cleared at least 6 weeks in advance. You're going to want to let the notes coming, mark your calendar, Impact Lives is happening. When does the real push happen? The real push is typically going to happen about 3 weeks before that actual event takes place. And you are going to email your list a lot. You are going to email your list. Let's say like for Impact Lives, I think in sort of the 15 days leading up to our event, we are going to email our list, I think 12 times, 3 times on the day before tickets actually close. And some people will opt out, and that's okay. I can't have thousands upon thousands of people opting out, but we don't typically see that. What we do see happening is we will sell 30% of our tickets in the 4 days before. And if we're launching an online program, we will sell 30% of our programs the night before at midnight. So you like email people a lot, or they won't see it. That's how they know something's going on. That's how I know someone cool is launching a program, is because Jeff Walker has 85 emails in my inbox that day, and I'm going to click on one of them. So just don't be scared to email your list.
Yeah, great advice. Kind of a nice follow-up question from Marissa in the chat is, do you recommend having a program completed before you start making your email list and kind of notifying your email list subscribers about this upcoming new offering that you're going to be bringing to the table?
Yeah. So Marissa, thank you for this question, because I'd actually say the exact opposite. You can start to build your email list now and cultivate that trust now. and be consistent in communicating with them now and know exactly what your audience is after. And how do you know that? Well, you can ask them on social. Sometimes I just say to people, hey, I'm in the final throes of creating a program we're going to launch in January. It's going to be all about managing your osteopenia. That's clearly a kick for me today. I want to know how many of you are interested in osteoporosis and specifically what your questions are. Hit me up with a reply. And you know what happens every time? People build that whole course for me. So typically when we're actually talking about, when we're not getting into courses, you've got awesome people getting into it this week. You don't have to build the whole course beforehand. You have to have a sense of where you want to go. You have to have a sense of who you are speaking to, but start speaking to them, get those little lead magnets out beforehand, start to grow your audience, and then you can build something on the back end.
So we talked a little bit at the beginning of your session about social media and where, you have business, your business has presence. That's where you should be asking people to sign up for your email list. But we did see in the chat quite a few people who have some resistance against social media. They don't want to be on there. They find it energetically draining, what have you. So what's your advice for the people that either aren't on social media, maybe they don't have large followings, or they just prefer to stay off of it? Is this still feasible for them to build a really robust email list?
Yeah, it's a really valid point because social media can just, I know everyone's like, oh, I hate social media, right? It is like, it can be an energetic drain. We just need to acknowledge your ideal client is accessing information for free on social media. You don't have to participate, but we have to acknowledge that is a huge part of the market is hanging out there. So if you are going to make the strategic decision that you do not want to be on social media, that's okay. You're just going to have to engage in strategy in other ways. You are going to have to cultivate a community of people where you can get onto other people's platforms. You may want to consider running paid traffic on social media. You just don't have to show up there, so you can have your ads run on that platform. Generally speaking, when we talk about traffic, I talk about the traffic trifecta. So the traffic trifecta is we can leverage social, we can leverage paid traffic, or we can get onto other people's platforms. And so you're really going to want to leverage getting onto other people's platforms, delivering a webinar on other people's platforms, pulling people onto your social media list. A lot of people said, how can I grow my list quickly? It feels like it's stagnant. This is the traffic trifecta for a reason. You're going to want to use more than one tool to be able to grow your list. But if you're finding that your list is actually stagnating or you need to grow it, you're going to want to look at running some kind of marketing event. A marketing event is something like a webinar. It is delivering it on somebody else's platform. It's running a summit. It's running a one-day workshop. It's changing up the norm. And ideally, you're going to pull from partners who they themselves have lists so that you're able to leverage their community as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. You kind of talked about a stagnant list. So kind of on that note, if we're kind of coming up with this one lead magnet or offer for people to opt into our email list, obviously there's a bit of a learning curve with doing this for the first time and getting our wheels on the ground, but how often do you think people need to refresh that or come up with something new? Do you have any advice about the number of opt-in offers that people should have?
It's going to depend. Well, how many can you make, right? Like that's the other piece is like, oh my gosh, Meghan, I'm like this solo entrepreneur. I can't just like create programs day in and day out. So that is part of it. And again, once we get into flow and once we get into a state of momentum, those things get a little bit easier. I think sometimes we build things up as being these big, huge things. You can create a new webinar and charge people $29 to attend that webinar or that masterclass on a timely topic. That is a new offer where we have an opportunity to have a different conversation with people. So you're going to want to look at your ecosystem of offers, and we can get into, program launches, and you're going to want to open your programs and close your programs. There's a whole strategy behind that piece. What I will say when I'm talking about this idea of delivering webinars, and I talk about it a lot because it's such an easy tool in the health and wellness space, you are not going to be able to show up I couldn't show up on my audience every month and be like, come to my webinar on how to create a killer email list. And then next month, come to my webinar on how to create a killer email list. You'd be like, we've heard it, Meghan. Like we need different content. So your front end content can change. One month I could do it on an email list. The next month I could do it on how to grow your social following. The next month I could do it on 8 ways to grow your list without ever having to show up on social again. And they could all lead into the same program. So that's probably how you're going to look at doing it. You create 5 or 6 webinars or trainings over the course of a year. Sometimes what you've put together is a new course or new offering in and of itself. So I want you to think about everything that you create as being modular. How can I repackage this together and make it something that I can make available to my audience in a different way?
Yeah, you gave a great example of quizzes as an option for a lead magnet. Do you have any software recommendations of where people can run these quizzes or where they can host them?
There's a lot of different quiz software. We already in our business are paying for Typeform. Typeform has a capacity to run quizzes. There's lead quizzes. There's lots of software that makes it very easy to design a quiz. It makes it very easy to collate that data. Honestly, when it comes to any of these platforms, pick one. If you already own and are purchasing a platform that enables you to do it, don't buy a new one. And then from there, find one where you actually find the user experience something that's easy for you to interface with, and check the integrations to make sure that it will integrate with the platforms you're already using. I'm not sure if Practice Better actually has some quiz platforms that integrate really well with their system, but I always check what integrates with a platform I already own. And then I make sure that the user experience is something that I can understand. And then I move forward from there. I don't make it more complicated than that.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm going to give us a little shout out too, because there's lots of ways that you can kind of do this kind of thing in Practice Better. We just added quizzes to our programs and courses feature, but we also have the ability with our forms and worksheets that you can create a custom form and run it like a quiz. So lots of different ways to get creative on the platforms that you're already using. All right, we're kind of coming towards the end of today's session. One last question for you, Megan, before we wrap this up. We saw some people ask, how many people do you think need to be on an email list before launching? Is there a golden number that people should aspire to when they're thinking about launching something like a program or a course that they need to have before kind of taking that next step?
Yeah, such a great question. The good news is you do not have to have anyone on your email list before you launch. You don't have to have a single person, but you are going to have to get out there and do something to draw people into your list and seed your list before you make that sale. So if I was going to launch a new program, and just based on where my brain is today, it was going to be all about osteoporosis. Surprise, surprise. This is not something I actually treated in practice. Probably what I would do is this. I would run a challenge. I would run a 5-day challenge around one simple outcome for individuals with osteoporosis. And I would tell 8 of my friends who have a similar audience that I am running this program. And I would probably bring them in as experts. I'd probably bring them in as affiliates. I'd give them a portion of my sales on the other side. And so I would run a 5-day challenge and I would get all of them to help promote my 5-day challenge. And now I'm benefiting from their communities. And there's a question earlier, well, how do I do that, Megan? How do I ask people about this? You just cultivate relationships. You lead with value. You go, hey, Sam, I know you have an audience of women over the age of 50. I'm going to be running this summit. I know you don't treat osteoporosis at all. I can add huge value to your audience, and I can also give you exposure in return. Would you be interested in being part of this? So I would run a challenge where I am leveraging the audiences of other colleagues and giving them value at the same time. And at the end of that 5-day challenge, probably starting on the Wednesday of that 5-day challenge, I would invite people to a webinar where I would be talking about my program. And I would be talking about the solution that we've uniquely created in our business. And at the end of that webinar, I would be inviting people to come into our program that we are starting. And I would be super enthusiastic. I have the endorsement of all of the people around me, and I've now started to seed my list. I can't resell them the program in 6 more weeks. I now have to go into a list building cycle, but I could absolutely start that from absolutely nothing. And so it really speaks to this idea, sometimes we're fully virtual and we're all online. One of the things that's just so critical for you to grow your business is for you to grow your community alongside that, for you to constantly be engaging with colleagues and not asking, how can they help me, but really looking for opportunities for you to be able to help them. One of the things I love about businesses in the online space is the spirit of reciprocity. And it is a really powerful tool for you as you build your business and as you access more impact. So don't forget about the relationships. Don't forget about your colleagues. We're all on a mission to change people's lives. And when you give people the opportunity to do that, you will be surprised how many people put up their hand who want to cheer you on.
Yeah, there's definite power in leveraging your network and your community. So thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and your expertise with us today. We're just so lucky to have had you on for day one of our program summit. I know you've already shared a little bit about where people can connect with you further, like Impact Lives with the generously offering a virtual ticket for people. But where can people go to connect with you further?
Yeah, so I would love to see you guys at Impact. It's taking place at the end of next week. And I talk about all of this stuff and all of our adventures and different things we're up to on social. So you can find me on Instagram. My handle is just Dr. Meghan Walker, and I hope to see you there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. For everybody else, stay tuned tomorrow for day 2. We have Lori Kennedy coming to help us learn how to build an online program. So really excited about that session. Keep an eye on your inbox for today's replay. And we've got lots more content coming up over the next week and beyond in your email inboxes. So make sure and keep an eye out for that. Thanks